2 years ago, we made a decision that everybody in our lives had an opinion about. We had a budget, we had land, and we had two choices sitting in front of us. The first was a traditional stick-built home, something safe, something the bank understood, something our family wouldn't raise an eyebrow at during the holidays. The second was a 3,000 square foot single-slope Barndominium for $210,000. We chose the Barndominium, and the question we get asked more than any other, more than what it cost, more than how long it took, more than what we'd do differently, is simply this: was it worth it? That's what this video is. Not a design showcase, not a sales pitch. The honest answer to that question, with real numbers, real regrets, and the things we wish someone had told us before we broke ground. Let's start with why we even considered it in the first place, because that context matters. At the time we started planning, the average cost to build a traditional stick-built home in our area was sitting somewhere between $180 and $220 per square foot. To get 3,000 square feet, we were looking at somewhere between $540,000 and $660,000. And that was before upgrades, before landscaping, before the inevitable overruns that every builder quietly warns you about, but never puts in writing. The single-slope Barndominium quote came in at $210,000 all in. Same square footage, same land, completely different financial picture. Now, we'd be lying if we said that number alone made the decision easy. Because when you tell people you're building a Barndominium, you get a very specific look. Now, the kind that says they're trying to be supportive, but they're privately wondering if you've thought this through. We heard every version of the concern: resale value, bank financing, insurance complications, whether it would actually feel like a home or just a very expensive metal building. We heard all of it. We did the research anyway. And here's what we found. The single slope roof design, the one where the roof line runs in a single continuous pitch from one high wall down to a lower wall, is not just an aesthetic choice. It's a structural and financial one. And once you understand why, a lot of the skepticism starts to dissolve. A single slope roof is one of the simplest structures an engineer can design. There are no valleys, no complex ridge intersections, no multiple drainage points competing with each other. While water goes one direction, load travels one path. Labor is straightforward and fat. Material waste is minimal. What that means in practice is that your roofing costs come down, your framing labor comes down, and your timeline comes down. On a 3,000 square foot build, those savings aren't small. They compound across every phase of the project, and they free up budget to put money where it actually shows, in the interior finishes, the windows, the kitchen, the floors, the parts of a home that determine how it feels to live in every single day. That's exactly what we did, and it changed everything about how the home turned out. The build itself took 11 months from permit approval to move in. I'm going to be honest with you, there were weeks in that 11 months that felt endless. There were contractor conversations that were frustrating. There was a 3-week delay on our steel delivery that pushed our entire timeline back and cost us more in temporary housing than we had budgeted for. Nobody tells you about the carrying costs when you're planning a build. The mortgage or rent you're still paying while your home is being constructed. The storage unit for your furniture. The meals you're eating out because you're living somewhere transitional. For us, that added roughly $11,000 to the real cost of the project that never shows up in any cost breakdown video because it's not technically a build expense. But it's real money that left our account because of the build. So when we say $210,000, that's the construction cost. The true all-in number, including our carrying costs, our landscaping, our driveway, our septic, and our well, was closer to $248,000. Still dramatically less than a comparable stick-built home. But we want to be honest about what that number actually represents, because vague cost figures help no one. Now let's talk about what we got for that money, because this is where the answer to the original question starts to take shape. The home is 3,000 square feet, single-slope roofline running from a 14-foot wall on the north side down to a 10-foot wall on the south. The interior has exposed steel beams that we left visible and painted matte black. They became one of the most commented on design elements in the entire house. The kitchen has full-height cabinetry that runs all the way to the ceiling, which we could only do because that high north wall gave us the ceiling height to pull it off. We have 3 bedrooms, yeah, 2.5 bathrooms, a home office, and an open living and dining area that genuinely feels like something out of a design magazine. Not because we spent extravagantly on it, but because the geometry of the space makes everything in it look intentional. High ceilings do something to a room that square footage alone cannot. They make modest finishes look considered. They make natural light feel abundant. They make a $210,000 build feel like something that costs significantly more. The windows on the high north wall run floor to ceiling across the entire living area. That was a $14,000 line item that we almost cut 3 separate times during value engineering conversations with our contractor. We didn't cut it. It was the best $14,000 we spent on the entire project. Every person who walks into this home stops at those windows. Every single one. Let's talk about what we do differently, because this section matters as much as everything else. We underestimated our mechanical rough-in costs significantly. HVAC in a high-ceiling open-plan space is not the same calculation as HVAC in a traditionally proportioned home. We ended up needing a more powerful system than our original quote accounted for, and that added $6,800 to our budget at a stage in the project where the budget had already been stretched. If we built again, we'd get the mechanical quote earlier, from a contractor who had specifically worked on high-ceiling Barndominium builds before, not one who was estimating based on a standard residential formula. We also wish we had poured a larger covered porch from the beginning. We added a 12-foot covered porch on the south side, which we use constantly, but we poured it at a width that made sense on paper and feels slightly too narrow in practice. Expanding a concrete slab after the fact is not impossible, but it's more expensive and more disruptive than doing it right the first time. An extra 4 feet of width would have cost us roughly $3,200 at the time of the original pour. We would pay significantly more to add it now. So, was it the smartest decision we ever made? Here is the honest answer. Financially, without question. We have a 3,000 square foot home that appraised at $340,000 6 months after we moved in. We built it for $210,000 in construction costs. That equity position, built in before we made a single mortgage payment, is something a traditionally built home in our price range could not have given us. The math on this decision was correct. Practically, almost entirely yes. The home performs exactly the way we hoped. It is efficient, it is comfortable, it is genuinely beautiful in a way that still surprises us on certain mornings when the light comes through those north windows and hits the concrete floors at the right angle. We are not people who regret this choice, not for a single day. But would we do it with more preparation? Absolutely. The carrying costs, the mechanical surprise, the porch width, none of those were catastrophic. But all of them were avoidable with better information going in. Which is exactly why we made this video. If you're sitting where we were 2 years ago, budget in hand, land secured, family members giving you that look, we want you to have the real picture, not the highlight reel, the full story. Because the answer to the question is yes. With the right preparation, the right contractor conversations, and the right expectations going in, building a single-slope barndominium is one of the smartest financial and lifestyle decisions you can make right now. And we'd do it again tomorrow. If this kind of honest, number-first content is useful to you, if it's giving you information that helps you make a better decision than we did, then subscribe. We make videos like this because we wish they existed when we were planning our build. Every video on this channel is built around one principle: tell you the truth, give you the real numbers, and let you decide. We'll see you in the next one.